Today on Gamers Remorse, we play the Lightspeed Cup by Fancy Squid Games. The Lightspeed Cup is a 2 to 6 player modular racing game set in the distant future where weapons are just as important as engines. Each player takes the role of a racer and a skipper. Each of the 6 racers has its own special ability, from carrying an extra sidearm to having a larger hand size. The 6 skippers, meanwhile, each have various speeds, weapons, and ramming abilities, which when merged with the pilot offer a wide variety of potential combinations. Each ship has various shield and life totals as well. The game begins with a racetrack being assembled by laying the 4 track mats out so they meet aligned along the edges and placing the obstacles on each mat with no more than 2 per tile. The fastest racer will go first by placing their skimmer on any hex along the center line where the track tiles meet. Once the first player has placed their skimmer, they start the timer, which is set at 15 minutes per player or 10 minutes per player for an expert game. Each player will have 4 actions they can perform on their turn: moving, shooting, ramming, and using a bonus card. While moving, you can move up to your speed, or as little as half of your speed, rounded up. You must move forward, but can move side to side as well. If you cross an atom symbol while moving, you'll draw a bonus card. If you hit an obstacle, however, you take 2 damage, remove the obstacle, and continue your turn. If a player moves off the edge of the track, the rear tile is moved to the front, and any ships on the moved tile are destroyed. When placing the new tile, roll all the dice, place an obstacle on the new tile for each symbol rolled, starting with a player in the lead choosing the location, then placing them in turn order from then on. Your ship's pilot has an array of weapons you can use to shoot during your turn. If you have only moved half your speed, you can fire all of your weapons. If you have moved your full speed, however, you can only fire one of them. Your weapons vary from a 360-degree range to a 180-degree range, and the front weapons which can only shoot forward. When firing, you must ensure that you have line of sight from the center of your hex to the center of the target that you are targeting. When shooting, you'll roll the dice as indicated on the weapon, and deal damage equal to the number of atom symbols rolled. While firing at obstacles, a single hit is enough to remove it from the track. If your movement places you directly behind another racer, you can use your ramming to run into them. Both you and the target will roll dice shown on your ramming attack. If you roll more symbols than the target, they take damage equal to the difference between the symbols you rolled and the symbols they rolled. If you rolled the lower number, however, you take the damage opposed to them. During your turn, you can play as many bonus cards as you desire, as well as your skimmer's default bonus action. If you ever gain a card while at maximum hand size, you must discard or play 1 card immediately. Over the course of the game, as you take damage, you'll rotate your shield gauge equal to the amount of damage taken. Once your shields hit 0, any additional damage is enough to destroy your skimmer. You'll then lower your life gauge by 1, reset your shields back to full, and discard any cards you have in your hand. Remove your ship from the track, and on your next turn, you'll place yourself back on the track along the center where the 2 middle tiles meet. When the timer hits 0, the game ends, and the player with the most lives wins. If all players are out of lives, or there is a tie for players with the most lives, the player with the most shields wins. If there is still a tie between the most shields or the most lives and shields, then the racers in contention will play sudden death until one of them is destroyed, in which case the surviving player is deemed victorious. So let's see what Sean and I thought of Lightspeed Cup.
Now we're going to go ahead and review Lightspeed Cup on Gamers Remorse. This is a game out on the Game Crafter right now, and overall, we really enjoyed it. I guess let's start off with you, Brian. What do you think about the look and feel of this game?
I really like the art style on this game. The ship consoles are all different. And Sean was teasing me as we're starting because I was picking my ship based on the console design as opposed to the ship's abilities. And then the ships each have their own token that matches the actual look of the ships, that feeds the theme. These are really nice, sturdy tokens, as are the obstacles. The mats are printed double-side, so you can flip them over. You know, you're never wondering if areas, they have some areas that are covered up by tubes and pipes. They got rid of the hex markers, so you don't have to guess what you can and can't go over. Because there are some obstacles-looking things that you can fly over and others you can't. So that was just really well laid out, really well done. I thought it was quite gorgeous. The only downside and look and feel is it's a very long board.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you have a small kitchen table, or a coffee table, you wouldn't be able to play the full board. However, we were almost always limited to 2 or 3 tiles at a time. So you could keep taking the tiles. Once you rotate off, you could pull it and rotate the board.
But I think you would need maybe all 4 if you had the full gamut of players.
Exactly. If you're playing with 6 players. But all in all, I gave it 1.75 out of 2 for that.
Nice. I have a little bit of a different perspective. So overall, I liked it. The art style was really good. The different player ship mats were really cool. The one thing maybe I didn't like as much is some of the it came off very cartoony, but maybe that's what it was going for. I feel like with these little really awesome racer tokens, maybe they could have gone a little bit more invested in the maps themselves. Yeah. But it didn't take away from the game. It was just something that kind of, every once in a while, it kind of took me back because it was a mesh between old school Nintendo and new school anime sort of a thing. I would have liked to see more technical things. Like, even these maps have technical drawings, blueprint style. But overall, I still really liked it, so I'd go more with a 1.5.
I think I'd actually agree with you on that now that you kind of brought that to my attention. The driver IDs especially, I feel like the characters, they're very different art style, I guess, and everything else. So I think those definitely could have been more thematic and filled in. So I think 1.5 I'd be. Okay. I would agree with that.
Okay.
How about balance and mechanics? What are your thoughts on that?
That's where I think this game really excelled. I gave it a 1.5. Reason for that is it seemed like each racer pod by itself had its own advantages, disadvantages, and since players could pick those out and then combine them with the racer, it would give you certain strengths and certain weaknesses that would also create a lot of replayability. We'll get into that later. But balance and mechanics plays into that. Yeah. So it's a positional game. It's very much a spatial movement game, along with being able to, take advantage of those spatial obstacles. So the dice rolling, although random, based upon your racer, you will have more dice or a different kind of dice that would then allow you to do better. So I thought it worked really well together. The downside, of course, is that for the purely strategic Euro gamers, you have dice rolling. So maybe that takes you back, So that's why this game lost the 0.5 point. Is it seems like I couldn't do as much strategy, but at the same time there was a lot there to work with. So I probably wouldn't change much, but 1.5 is still a great score. What would you think?
I agree entirely. 1.5 for balance and mechanics. A lot of the same reasons. There are plenty of different ships to choose from, and they each have a different strategy. And so you have to come into the game aware and prepared for that. In other words, you're trying to just do a sprint race with a ship with a speed of 4. And you're just not going to survive that.
What did you think about pacing of the game?
For pacing, I gave it 0.75 out of 1. It's paced really well. It comes with a timer, and the duration of the game is 10 or 15 minutes per player based on if you're going to play a short game or a long game, which I think is really cool. Except if you're playing with, say, 6 players, I could see where it would get to the point where you're like, all right, so 6 players, that's a minimum of an hour game. And if a player gets constantly stuck in the front and they can't do anything, they're going to be sitting here going, all I do is move. I can never attack because reasons. And so they start 30 minutes in, they're going to be hating it. And everyone else will be like, yeah, we're hitting him. And that one guy will have that terrible experience that will ruin it for everyone else. But aside from that, I mean, it plays quickly, turns are quick. So just don't invite that guy to play this game with you.
So originally I had given it full points, but I think I'm going to agree with you at, 0.5 or
0.7? 0.75.
0.75. Just because of that, I hadn't anticipated the 6+ player where it's going to take a while for it to come around to your turn, and the whole time you see this clock just ticking down, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're going to have that one guy that's like, well, do I want to go for more cards? In the rules, they actually encourage you to give that guy a lot of crap, right? So you're heckling him the whole time, which may even slow him down even more. I wonder if there's some rule where you could then, cut that person off. Since you have a clock, maybe a 3-minute rule. They have 3 minutes to get their turn done. If they don't get it in that time, maybe they lose a life. Something drastic like that. I don't know.
Because that was one of the things that we had mentioned in play as well is, if a guy is in the lead, he could take 20 minutes going, do I want to go left or right? He wants to just keep his turn taking as much time as possible. And when you're heckling them, they might turn around and start taking longer. So, I mean, again, it's invite friends' knowledge, knowing how they will play.
Or invite friends' knowledge.
Or just invite us.
That'll work. We'll always play a game.
What about the theme? What do you think about that?
You're the theme guy, but
I'll tear you apart when you're done. Though.
Good. Out of 2 points, I gave it 1.5. I think the theme was there. We were talking about this earlier. Episode 1, Star Wars, right? You got your pod racing going on. That's kind of what this felt like. We each had our own vehicle. We're moving around. We're shooting at each other. We're trying to knock each other into different obstacles. That was a blast, you know? And the ability cards, or what are they called? Special cards?
Bonus something.
Bonus cards, those played into this drastically, right? So you run over one of these little neutron icons, you grab bonus cards, and then they further invest in that theme. So I have a quantum spin, which allows me to pull a crazy Ivan and turn around, shoot at this guy, you know, using my 180-degree firing arc. Well, now it's 360 degrees, so I can shoot backwards. This is the neutron smash, right? So I can ram people or whatever. I mean, I think the theme was built into how the mechanics played out, and I really like seeing that. Anyway, so I gave it 1.5. What's your thoughts?
I think I'm going to agree with you on 1.5. This is a very fluid theme, and it worked great. You have the shields, you have your life, you're ramming, you're attacking. It feels almost like Twisted Metal meets Mario Kart meets Carmageddon meets Spy Hunter.
I was going to say RC Pro-Am.
Meets RC Pro-Am.
For the early 80s gamers.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, there's just so much going on that can be enjoyed. But at the same time, like, you could change this from futuristic space warfare to, let's go, current era, Mad Max. You know, like, Desert. It's a movie coming out.
Yeah, I know. It's not current era.
No, but I mean,
futuristic dystopian, but yeah.
Relating to current time period. You know, you could go to riding cattle, racing to claim land out in the Oregon Trail. Like
that would be interesting.
I feel like it's a game that you could just put new and varied themes on it, but it used the theme it had very well.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you. 1.5 for that.
1.5, yeah.
So
what do you think about the ease to learn of this game?
I give the game 0.75 for its ease to learn.
Okay.
There's so much stuff happening in the box that I was overwhelmed at first. There's all these like little hex cubes with various photos, and it's like I don't know what any of it means. But once you read the rule book and start looking at them and start putting the stuff together, it makes sense. And I mean, someone else could walk in right now and sit down, and in 2 minutes we could be playing the game.
Yeah.
The barrier to entry, the reason I didn't give it the full 1 point, is because you kind of have to have some knowledge of the ships to choose what ship you want to play as.
Yep.
Other than that, it's a very sit-down-and-play game. But what do you think?
I gave it 0.5. I could probably go the 0.75. My contentions were with the rulebook itself. So the rulebook was well set up. It's fun artwork throughout and all that. And I could find the different areas that I wanted to learn about, but there were some aspects that were not actually discussed in the rulebook. So we kind of house ruled it. We kind of figured it out by looking at different cards and things. You said 0.75 though. Yep. So 0.75 will work, yeah. Okay. I just didn't get the full points because it seemed like the rulebook was missing some things.
So how about replayability?
I gave it full marks on replayability. That's where this game excels. That and the mechanics. The mechanics strongly support replayability. It's a racing game, which racing games generally have a lot of replayability, but this one also has unique obstacles that change every time you're playing it, you know. Yeah. Although this is a 4-mat track, and those mats constantly repeat. There are 2 sides to the mats. You flip it over, so it's a little bit different. And then you roll dice to determine how many obstacles actually go on that. Awesome. Yeah. You know? And then there's different ships, so that's another variable into the mix. And then different players, and they're each going to play a little bit differently as well. So it's constant replayability. So I gave it full marks.
I agree. It was a great game, very replayable. But something I'm just going to bring up again is, you know, we were playing it with a smaller player base. Imagine playing this with 6 people at the end of that hour to 2 hours.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd be like, yeah, let's do another hour to 2 hour game of this. For 2 or 3 players, yes, very replayable. But I'm going to make an argument for 1.5. And part of that comes down to this sheet will become this sheet at the end. And then this sheet will become the other side.
So you know what's coming.
Yeah, so you kind of have an idea of what's coming. You know, if they added, say, a layer of extra sheets and you would shuffle them up, they could, you know, it's very expandable. They could have future expansions with different obstacles. They could add new racers, new ships, and I think that would even up the replayability in the future.
Imagine portals being added into this, or paths going off the main road and on.
Yeah, I mean, that would be quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Or then, like, I guess you couldn't do constant effects because you're racing down a thing, so I couldn't affect not legacy.
Yeah.
I flipped this over and it does not fit anymore. So that's another thing.
Nope. Fit. 180.
180. There we go. So they only fit in a certain manner as well. You can't do a ton of rotates and flips and everything on them, which would be kind of cool if you could.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd say, you know, based on your player count and your types of players will alter the replayability. And so for our player style, it's a very replayable game. But we've had some guests on our show that might rage quit halfway through.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, 1.5 then, 1.5. Okay. So that brings us to 7.5.
Solid 7.5.
7.5 is a pretty good score.
Yeah.
So it's for 2 to 6 players, ages 12 plus. You can currently find it on the Game Crafter. And then one more thing, as we talk about the price per star. So the price is $39.99 on the Game Crafter right now. So that's dollars per star. We're at 5.3, which is still a pretty good average.
Yeah.
I mean, if you compare it against Caverna or something like that, 5.3 is pretty common amongst those. But again, this is our scale. You know, if things matter more to you, maybe replayability matters more than graphics or something like that, feel free to weight it accordingly.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's definitely a game that, I mean, clearly 7.5 is a solid score. If you like racing games and you wish they had more combat, this is something to look into.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.